Welcome to the annual SAS cycling membership, and we're adding on a COVID town hall meeting this year, I guess, unfortunately. So welcome to everyone here. So one thing that we can do is just, I guess, go around, and I just want to make sure if everyone, I've got most people here, I think. I'll just maybe say your name, and then if I'm missing anyone at the end, you can just give me your name after that, just for kind of tracking it for our for the minute's sake. So I've got Dwayne Newdorf, Rob Walser, Corey Jackson, Mark Gibson, Ryan Graff, Dallas Philippon, Craig DeGear, Hank Hees, James Corpin, Gordon Kerfoot, Kyle Schmidt, Jeff Ellis, Russ Down, Niall Schofield, Michael Edmonds, Jen Corney, and Blair Drader. Now, we just had two people come in from the waiting room. So we had Bill enter, and I missed the last person who entered. Ian Toms entered. Is there anybody that I did not call that would like to be recorded in the minutes?
Lori Ewan is present as well. She's just beside me here off the camera.
Okay.
So is Chelsea Schreimer. She's here.
Okay.
Nicole Devon's here too.
Chelsea swore.
Cool. Okay.
Kim and Lana Adam.
Kim and Lana.
Let's see, we got a Brock Campbell here as well.
Brock. Okay. So yeah, well, thank you guys for all showing up tonight. And I'm going to turn it over to Rob for the SCA president remarks.
Hey, everybody, glad y'all could make it. I wish we would be sitting in the boardroom having pizza and visiting, and but I guess as we all learned last year, 2020's taught us something.
How long do you
that things are going to be a little bit different for a little while. So, as I guess it's a few things I wanted to touch on. You know, 2020 is behind us, and we're into 2021. But unfortunately, we're still dealing with, you know, the public health situation's largely still the same. You know, there's lots of unknowns about what we're going to be allowed to do this year for organized activities. But I think the one good thing is, one advantage we have this year over last year is we did some really, last year gave us a chance to, I like to see that we adapted, we got innovative, you know, we created some different opportunities. You know, the rules that were put in place did create some extra effort for, you know, for clubs to hold rides, and some clubs also didn't feel comfortable holding group activities. But I think when I look at the activities that we had last year, you know, that were just, you know, they were just starting, but they really picked up momentum. You know, we hosted a national junior virtual race series. There's the Prairie Cycling Spring Series, which was a virtual racing between Manitoba and Saskatchewan. There was the virtual time trial. We had virtual group rides, and really cool thing is that that's evolved onto a national platform but it's thanks to our members that played a pretty significant role in setting that up, piloting it in Saskatchewan. And, we got, something, that we started that's going on across the country. And even I know around Regina, there was even some solo gravel ride series in the spring. I guess, well, we don't know what 2021 is going to look like, but I think we know we can adjust and we can have fun on bikes. Yes, from a board perspective, last year, well, I guess the one thing we had to do was it was time for us to renew and update our strategic plan for the next strategic planning period. That's a requirement that we have from SAS Sport. And I guess one change that we did for it this year was to make the document more forward-looking planning document. And by that, what we did is we're going to be doing this winter is taking it to the committees, and part of it having the committees look, okay, here's what the plan, our strategic plan says we need to do over the next 3 years, and really breaking it down into, okay, year one, what are the goals for this year? What are we going to accomplish in the second year? And then in the third year, what are we going to accomplish? So, give some time, and, maybe there's some big activity there that's going to be multi-year, and we can start working towards it in year one, year two, but we know we don't have to have it really done until the third year. Give some time to work on those activities. I guess a couple other things that are new this year. These are largely, a couple more administrative comments. And we've got a new insurance program. It's the same policy as we had the previous years. Essentially, we do all the provinces that are on the plan have just simply just changed the broker at this point, but the policy and the policy is the same. With changes in insurance this year, and it's not even really a change because of the change in insurance. It's just more of something that was happening across the board with insurance, as we all know. We've seen rates increasing. There's always a general trend for insurance rates to increase. But one thing that really became apparent this year was we did face a real significant increase in our insurance rates, largely driven because of COVID and all the concerns around COVID, and that it creates for the insurance companies and the people that are underwriting the policies. But the good news for everybody, we had to look at things, and that increase that we faced, we're not passing it on to members, so there's not going to be there's not a member rate in a fee or membership rate change for this year. And just with some of the different funding that is available from government to assist sport organizations through the pandemic, since the insurance increase is caused by the pandemic, they're letting us use that assistance to offset that expense. Just wanted to also have a bit of a discussion here, or just talk a little bit about, the one thing that was new last year that we did was, we had come summertime when the reopen plan was unveiled. One of the things we had to do was develop a return to play document for cycling. This is something that all the sports have had to do, and it was just something we all had to do in order for us to be allowed to allowed to sanction and approve events or events within that fell within the public health guidelines. And I guess a couple key things about our return to play document, is it has at all times it has to follow the public health measures that are in place, and it needs to be viewed as a living document. So when the province makes adjustments to their guidelines, we have to make adjustments to our return to play documents. So that's why, I guess, so everybody is aware, that's why throughout the year you saw new versions coming out, and as of late, in December there was an update, and we're just where we just here's the changes to the document. So yes, that's kind of all. That's all I had to talk about.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah.
So then I guess we can move over to so our provincial coaches report. So Russ can just give us a little bit of an update of what happened this year with the performance cycling program.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Yeah, it was a different year, and we definitely had to pivot. And we had projects lined up, and you can find them under performance cycling program about. There's a document that shares the program, and then there was one for road, BMX, and mountain bike, and it was demonstrating what we're trying to do this year for everyone. And yeah, what we did get to do in February is we were able to do our first indoor outdoor type BMX out of province project, which was in Olds, Alberta. So that was very cool. And after that, we soon landed in restrictions and found athletes at home. So as soon as we found athletes at home, because of school, we started learning a lot about virtual communication. So next thing you know, we had Zoom, we had band, we had all kinds of communications with parents and families on how to interact with their athletes. And we had several online projects that were educational that ended up working into their program. Athletes attended a program called Athletes Guide to Sponsorship, in which they were able to talk about their goals and objectives and how to represent themselves as an athlete. We were quite excited. Molly Herford was our facilitator for that, and they participated also in, it was an opportunity to get them into other things such as thinking about yoga or strength and conditioning or corrective exercises to stay keep themselves safe and healthy, because normally we'd be right into cycling May, June, July, but we were able to do a little bit of that prep. We got a Jeux Canada Games grant and started, one of the primary things we're always trying to do is make sure we have athletes going to nationals in all the disciplines and make sure that we can send teams to multi-sport games. So recruitment was on top of mind this year, and it was a year where we thought, well, how are we going to do that? But we ended up networking around, and one of the challenges, we're still very interested in finding more girls, but was pretty excited to recruit a small pocket of females that are very interested in training in a performance way. So that was great. Yes, we did the regular, so we started doing our nutrition talks online, etc. We pivoted again and tried to create an ad hoc SCA virtual cycling committee, and then talked to, so Jason Gillespie, my colleague in Manitoba, he and I both were trying to find ways for our athletes to race. And so racing against masters was a perfect thing, and against each other. So the Prairie Virtual Cycling Series really was for membership, but also was very much created so that we had events and options for our youth to participate in. We got Discord going. They went to some of the events that were already hosted through Zwift a little bit, through other clubs in the province, but we did use the Prairie Virtual Series and our connection with Manitoba, and used it again for education purposes, and learning about other athletes and competing. The idea of the Canadian Junior Virtual Cycling Series sprouted from that, and it was an opportunity for us to represent to the nation, and to Cycling Canada, and add value and provide something that was needed. So yes, SAS Cycling Association, the Performance Cycling Program, created that. The co-coordinators were Caleb Bender, one of our athletes, and myself, and we had a committee that included Craig DeGear, Paul Cutting, and those were the primaries. We were able to get power meter prizes sponsored by 4I in different groups, and that ended up, so we were able, through the Jeux Canada Games grant and through this series that we put on, get equipment. So we were able to keep a meter or two for decline, able to keep a meter or two for our team, and to continue for recruitment. So we were excited about that, because one of the primary things, like I said, the nationals, etc., but also creating homes within Saskatchewan for performance cycling athletes is what we want in both north and south. That's what the other sports we compete with have, and athletes are generally have the opportunity to be in 11 month of the year programming if they so choose. And cycling hasn't been like that for a while, and my objective has been to try to create a scenario where those options existed. So that later led us to the Gordie Howe complex, where we started having talks with Friends of the Bowl a bit, and some of the private organizations that are in there are supporting our bid to create a home in Saskatoon that might be there. Again, that's in the preliminary processes, but we were quite excited to have them give us an area and suggest where we could be. And my thought was, we'd love to have a trophy cabinet up there so that our athletes can see what's happened in the past. And we had somebody then say to us, one of our national athletes, that they were going to sponsor and provide a jersey that we could put on display. And that's what I really want, is to increase the profile of cycling, so that, and somebody said to me, well, why do you want to be in that facility? Why don't you just go to a bike shop or whatever? But again, it's recruitment and building in the sport and being where the other athletes are. So we're interested in being in similar places in both southern and central Saskatchewan related to that. The other thing we did, there was no provincial series, and all those plans to go to province for racing and all the disciplines was to the wayside. And again, pivoted and followed the return to play document, and ended up setting up camps all over the province. So that was very cool. We were in, Waskesiu, Cypress Hills, Fort Qu'Appelle, Lumsden, Regina, Buffalo, Pound, Esterhazy, Saskatoon, Regina. And I'm missing a few others, but using a trailer that was available, and then following all the protocols and having alcohol, and getting parent chaperones and kids in tents, and following all the rules, we were able to create a lot of great projects that were, again, actually that were very strong for recruitment and keeping athletes, because they were small groups because of the rules. So we always had to have limited groups, so athletes got to know other athletes, and I hope that results in retention. So that's one of our goals. One of the things that happened, we took part in, very happy to see the Road Series in Regina, and I would love to see that happen again if it's possible in COVID times. That was very effective for our athletes in southern Saskatchewan, or in the Regina area. And the Time Trial Series in Saskatoon was also timely, because the athletes up there were younger and hadn't had any experience with that, so they got to learn a bit about that kind of racing. So yeah, we did weekly check-ins via Zoom, because again, kids weren't at school, and we found ways still to do strength and conditioning in the centers that we had. Yeah, and we made the best out of what we could. So yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say. Any questions?
Not hearing any questions, and if you're waiting till the end for questions, we'll all be sticking around for questions at the end too, so that's fine. So now to the more of the, I guess, the COVID town hall of the meeting. So yes, like Russ was, or Rob was talking about earlier, we did create a progressive return to cycling guidelines earlier in the year. These guidelines were to help clubs to figure out how they could to organize events, and for us to be able to say they were sanctioned improved activities if they were falling within our guidelines. So these guidelines were created through, they're all compliant with any provincial health regulations, and that's why they change so often, is they do have to be updated whenever there's new restrictions or relaxations of the rules. And I also attended many meetings with the business response team, and some of the guidelines take into what insurance is going to allow and not allow. And then there was just lots of meetings with our peer groups of cycling associations all across the country, and other PSOs in Saskatchewan here that aren't cycling, but kind of what they're dealing with as well. And any guidelines that were relevant to cycling that maybe didn't come from Canada. US, if anyone's interested, US has some really great return to play guidelines as well. And so the guidelines are just, they're a living document and they're adjusted as needed. Does anybody have a question about guidelines?
I actually do have a little bit of a question about the guidelines there. And this is probably going to be your opinion, Sarah, okay. But has the business response team and/or SAS Sport learned anything from the events that happened over the last couple of months here with return to play in that? Because personally, to put it lightly, I'm kind of pissed off about the leeway that hockey and curling and some of these other sports got after a really frustrating summer of trying to organize anything in this province. And like even organizing the time trial series, where I was legally only allowed to have 30 people at an individual time trial, yet then hockey's allowed to proceed with 40 to 50 people on the ice surface at a time. So I'm curious as to whether the business response team and SAS Sport has sort of learned anything, and if they're going to start to be able to recognize, or if we can petition to have them recognize that, hey, we're capable of operating safe sport here, whereas these other sports aren't. Yeah.
So what really happened there is, and that your entire sentence, Craig, was actually like a really common complaint coming out of all of our meetings, was even football got a little bit of extra, extra numbers and everything like that. So that was a really common complaint amongst all of the PSOs when attending these meetings is, hey, why can't we do what they're being allowed to do? And what we were told was that at least with the hockey guidelines, they were being kind of considered as a prototype of what they were thinking that they were going to do. And they said if it was successful, that was going to be released to the rest of the province. But they were wildly not successful with it. The problem that we have is the I will call them the bigger sports like football and hockey all got together and they hired a lawyer apparently, and it was the lawyer who dealt with the business response team and dealt with the dealt with the Saskatchewan Health Authority to get the more lenient guidelines, I guess. So and from what I'm getting from them is, if we wanted to really push that, we would need to also hire a lawyer and get the lawyer to fight on our behalf, sort of thing, because they're not right now, they're not willing to consider anything outside of the guidelines with what is sounding like non-legal help. Does that make sense?
No, but I'll accept it.
Well, yeah, I agree with you too. I really tried, you guys.
Craig, you don't even want to know how many hours. Yeah, that same question. me phoning Sarah on my lunch, how many lunch breaks was, why the heck is football allowed to do this? Why are they allowing them to have 80 and coaches don't count? Yet we can't bring 40 people together for a bike race.
And 100% not criticizing the work that Sarah, Russ, yourself, Rob, anyone else on the board or the committees has done with this. I very much appreciate all of it. The criticalness of the comments goes to other PSOs who have essentially fought to get other leniency, and then without evidence that they can operate their sports safely, and then have epically failed to operate their sports safely. So
Yes. Yeah.
And
probably
I
damaged
think,
by it in the meantime too.
and I think and potentially making things harder for those of us that can operate our sports safely to do that this year.
And I honestly think like a big problem that we're having is that the business response team and the government doesn't really understand the sport of cycling. Whenever I talk to them, they honestly just don't get it. And I think that is just a little bit of a problem for us, because I mean, I guess everybody knows hockey and they know how it works, and they just don't know how our sport works, and they're not honestly willing to learn about it at this point in time. Does anybody have any other comments, questions around those?
This may or may not be easy to answer, but like we put a lot of rules in place for rides, and did things like kept lists for contact tracing and so on.
Yeah.
Do we know if any of that was ever actually tested, in the sense that somebody who was one of those asymptomatic carriers showed up to a group event? Like,
as far as I know, in cycling at least, we did not have any positive cases that were resulting out of anybody coming into our ride sort of thing and getting a positive case. So it wasn't actually tested because it theoretically wasn't needed, but it is something that the government is telling us that we need to be doing, is keeping this list for contact tracing for 2 weeks sort of thing.
oh, I wasn't questioning the need for the list. That totally makes sense.
Okay,
I'm
yeah.
just wondering if there's any data, either from Saskatchewan or more in general, over the risk of cycling compared to hockey. Like hockey is obviously, you got people sitting on a bench side by side, they're indoors, shared airspace. Cycling is, as you've said, they don't understand, is very, very different. Most of the time we're outside. It's a, in terms of a COVID risk, it seems like it would be a very different scenario. And I'm just wondering if there's any data that we can say, look, we did have this one unfortunate case where somebody who eventually tested positive showed up to an event, and because of the rules we had in place, nobody else was infected.
Yeah, that's something that I can talk to any of the PSOs across Canada and see if they have any data from that. But we just, I guess, fortunately, just never even had a positive case resulting out of any of our rides to really have tested it.
And I think the one thing that's important to keep in mind is, throughout last summer, relatively our numbers in Saskatchewan were pretty low throughout the summer, especially compared to what they have been the last couple months.
Yeah, and right now, like I'll speak from a skiing perspective. I'm on the board of the ski club, and they're basically applying any rule right now that applies to indoors and outdoors. So even outdoor sports right now are having a very strict protocol for numbers, mostly probably because of the case numbers. But so I don't see that loosening up that much. But
and
I would say that
if you follow pro cycling and look at all the news there have been on the pro teams quite a few cases of COVID. So cycling's not exempt for sure.
No, but I think that we did prove that we can run some events, and we can run within a reasonable set of guidelines, and I think that that's something that we can show that we did, and can hopefully sell to the business response team too, that hey, this is a safe activity for return to play and return to sport. Whereas in Saskatchewan, especially, we have the proof to back that up because we had no outbreaks associated with the sport. So at the very least, it should go back to at least where we were as of the end of last year before other sports and other things kind of ruined it.
Yeah.
I agree with that. That was
We
a really
also
good
did
thing.
our races and stuff too when the numbers were really low, before the numbers started really climbing. So I don't know if that would make a difference, but yeah.
Yeah, like right now they've suspended the entire mini team format for all sports. And I don't even, just talking to them, that so far is not even up for debate.
Can you repeat that, Sarah, please?
That the mini team format that they did, that we were allowed the 30 people to do the bike riding, the government have suspended the mini team, so that no longer is being allowed.
Okay. Has there been anything specific in regards to like the BMX world? Like I know these are group rides and mini teams and stuff like that, but is there anything specific to the BMX world according to the guidelines that we had to follow last year with the social distancing and the 6 feet apart and the less people on the gate and the all the stuff that we did?
Yeah. So currently what is being told to us is for outdoor sports, we're only allowed a maximum of 10 people on the field sort of thing. So that is down from what the numbers were in the summer. And everyone now must be spaced 3 meters instead of the 2 meters. So that's up to 10 feet now instead of the 6 feet.
10 members at a time? Is that not including parents and everything in the let's say the rafters or the bleachers or the around?
Technically right now parents aren't even allowed to stay.
And we're talking outdoor, like in an area that's covered like a 3 kilometer radius?
Yeah.
Yep.
And you're not allowed any sort of competitions. You would not be allowed to have actually races right now. You are only allowed training for sport for training purposes only sort of thing. We can't have any sort of competition right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Sarah, I'll just weigh in here. James Corpin from Regina Cycle Club.
Hi, James.
It's been a frustrating year, and I want to commend the work that SAS Cycling has done and that Sarah has done and that the volunteers in our club have done to read and react. Like, it's just been so crazy what was allowed. Okay, now we can do a little bit more. And it's like, okay, now we can do a little bit more. And it's just constantly changing. And it wasn't twice as much work putting on a bike race for fewer people this year as 5 times as much work. And, at least we're primarily a summer sport. And it seems to be the nature of the COVID beast that, when winter drives people inside, the numbers go up, the restrictions get greater. Hopefully, as it warms up, we'll see a return to at least what we were allowed to do last year. We had some frustrations as well with, why can all these people smash mouth each other playing football when, there's people who can't come out to cross because we're limited to our rule of, I think it was a rule of 50 or a league of 50 at that time. But, we had people showing up, hoping to be able to get in because people would drop out. And that was the one that really stung, was cross season, because we had to turn some people away. But otherwise, it wasn't a normal year, but we were able to do an awful lot and to offer a lot of programming. And I think Sarah saw every email from me. It was like, oh God, now what do I have to look into? But anyway, great job. Just had to say that. I guess we're gazing into a crystal ball to see what this next year is going to be like. But hopefully it'll be at least as good as last year, and hopefully better. So.
Thank you, James.
Thanks, James.
Just as a follow-up to that, it's Chris Doring from Off-Road Syndicate. Is there any indication of what next year will be like how fast responses will come if numbers go down and stuff, or what?
No, so the government's not they're not releasing anything yet. It's going to be very much okay, and 1, 2, 3, go.
Okay. I mean, it was good season.
hopefully-
RCC Cross was great.
Yeah,
The
hopefully
second
they'll
half
give
of our
us 2
season's
weeks
fine.
notice is kind of what they've said in the past, but I'm not even going to guarantee that one.
Okay, thank you. And the guidelines were good. The information that we got was good and straightforward to follow and everything. So it was more work, but it's not the guidelines' fault. It was COVID's, I guess.
And that was one of the goals, one of the things we wanted to do with the return to play is try and make it as easy for the clubs to adjust and have cycling activities. So just to keep, just to have everybody playing from the same, operating from the same playbook.
Sarah, it's Bill here. I'll throw a few comments in. Having been really involved, and I echo what James said, really involved this fall with the cyclocross that I thought was very, very successful, and it was almost normal with the ability to have 50 people. So I have to admit, and I'll echo what Craig said as well. I have to admit, when you see the rest of the provincial response in Saskatchewan, which is one of the most relaxed in the country, obviously, because of where we ended up, I guess I'm quite surprised to see that they're here where we're at when it comes to organized sport, which seems to be much more restrictive than other provinces. So, I don't know if that is something we need to be working at sooner than later to try and say, look what's allowed in, Quebec. And I think you're aware they were awarded in the national award for their success in return to play for the events they had. And their cases were through the roof compared to Saskatchewan, and we did really good. So, I guess kind of forgot about things in the winter because we're not competing now. but a month or two from now, if we can't do what we were doing last year, there's going to be a lot of frustration, and so I don't have any great ideas, Sarah, other than comparing where the other provinces. It's probably something for the IPC to start talking about now, where the rest of the provincial restrictions are headed, relative to the rest of the provincial guidelines. So that's just not really much to help you with, but thoughts, I guess.
Yeah, that's something that we're planning on looking into in the future.
Right. Good. Thanks.
Well, and I'll agree with you, Bill, too, in that all of the zeros that we can report from last year, those are important zeros there. And it shows that our organization and our population base of participants is able to be compliant with regulations and to return to sports safely. And I think we really need to sell that.
Yeah.
For sure, Craig, and I echo what you said as well, Jim. Like, it was really good what Sarah and Russ and what you guys did to keep us going and keep communication up, and the clubs as well. James and Mike, I see, is there too, was excellent. But do we need to work some of the political angles a little bit better? I'm sure there's other sports in the same boat. I haven't really been too closely involved to cross-country skiing and biathlon. I see that lots of people out skiing and can't even buy boots for our girls because they're totally sold out, and don't even have any signs of getting equipment. So, just wondering what we can do there to work with other sports, or even work the political angles. I don't know who the people are on this committee that you deal with, but maybe we need to see who's got contacts there.
Yeah, and SAS Sport's done a really good job of organizing. Was weekly. I think we're going to kind of bi-weekly meetings now with the business response team. And we have been able to kind of voice our concerns and the problems, even with the equity and everything, right to the managers of the business response team. it hasn't so far made that much of a difference in what they're actually allowing, but we
Right.
will be, we'll be fighting for what they'll give us, sort of thing.
Okay.
If I can jump in here for one quick sec. I just wanted to comment on the positivity of the group and some of the positive responses and the recognition of people's efforts in dealing with all this information and stuff like that. Just sitting in on this meeting and listening to the people's opinions and voices and their efforts and all the great things that we as a collaborative group are doing together. I just wanted to shine light on that, because it's tough to be positive when everything is coming down on you and everything's coming down on our sports and our communities and our involvement in the sport and our efforts. Sometimes it can feel like, more doors are closing than opening, and that can be really defeating. But from the morale of this group that's on tune right now, I just wanted to say that the morale is high, the efforts are strong, and it's really good to see.
Thank you, Niall.
Thanks, Niall.
One other question on a positive note, if I may. In a less organized sense, all the news I've read says that this was a banner year if you were a bicycle salesperson. That there were lots of people out buying bikes, and the used market was crazy, and the people dusting their old bikes out of the garage and getting out and riding was crazy. So I know, obviously, the year coming up, we don't really know what we're going to be able to do for any type of riding. But do we have a plan to start reaching out to all these brand new cyclists who are not plugged into clubs anywhere? Or
yeah, that's actually something that we're going to be starting shortly, maybe by the beginning of February. I think we've got our plan, is that we've actually hired a marketing company that is going to be working on a lot of marketing for us, and we're going to be trying to reach the people that have bought the bikes and that are out riding, sort of thing, and they're just trying to get them plugged into the SCA, sort of thing. And we're trying to get a little bit more brand recognition out there. So that is going to be something, hopefully, that will pay off in the end for us.
I think it's something too. I mean, we all play a big role in, is, I guess, within our society, within our population here, it's to get people to see cycling as riding a bike as a sport, that it is a sport. It's just not going around the block or going to grab an ice cream. But they're actually, what is a time trial? What is a crit? Like, the little nuances of a bike race. What's a cross country mountain biking? What is it? Come out and if we get to a point where we can have a local race night that people can come out and try, I think will all be good to grow our sport.
Yeah. Nicole and I, RCC's the beginner program, and one of the things about the COVID rules that was kind of strange to me was that at the beginning of the year, when we were first allowed to do things again, the message was racing is allowed, but any casual rides that aren't a race, we had to be distanced. And that presented a real challenge for us, that I'm wondering if we can do something better this year, because all these new people that are keen, they're on Zwift over the winter, I want to teach them how to draft and how to actually race, so they can participate in those events. And it just seemed really strange that in the fall, the messaging with hockey changed to no games, practices only. And I just wondered what your guys' thoughts were about that kind of distinction between, you're allowed to do rides or races or just one or the other. Where do you think it's going next year?
I think the big thing last year, Christo, too, was, it was into the summer once they introduced or allowed us to have mini leagues. Then you could have your mini league that allowed to have a local race series. You know, early in the year, mini leagues weren't there, so all it could be was, you know, socially distanced activity rides.
And it'll all depend on what the government is going to be allowing us again. But if we're going to be allowed to the same type of scenario where this, so what you're described is when you can do races when we set up a mini league, and there is nothing in the rules stating we couldn't set up more than one mini league per club sort of thing. So if clubs wanted to set up a mini league to teach the new athletes how to draft and things like that, that is certainly something that the club can do. The only thing is when they're doing that, they have to make sure that it's the same people within the mini league all the time. You can't be rotating people in and out of the mini league. Once your mini league is set, it's kind of set. Whereas we were allowing people to go for a group ride, but it had to be socially distanced, and that way people could kind of rotate in and out of who was coming to the events and everything like that, is just where the district distinction was. But absolutely, if you guys want to set up your own little mini league for whatever you want to call it sort of thing, that is something that you would have been allowed to do, I guess, over the summer. And that's hopefully the things that are going to be coming back, but also, I mean, I can't guarantee it at this point.
So under last year's rules, could a coach, Sarah, coach one mini league and participate as a participant in another mini league?
Yes, so if the coaches, the rules always were that you can have the same coaches and officials going from mini league to mini league. But at the same time, if you're like hopping around mini league sort of thing as the official or whatever, you had to wear a medical grade mask. They're not even allowing cloth masks for that. So those blue masks, I guess, that you can pick up from Costco or whatever. So any coaches would need to pick up a mask to wear during their coaching, and then you would be the participant, so you wouldn't need to wear the mask if you were doing a different mini league.
Perfect, thank you.
This is Hank. If I could just interject with a comment or two.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's been really interesting to hear the discussion. This is the first SCA meeting I've attended, so it's just nice to sort of get to know some of these faces and people. It sort of struck me that the perspective on all this really probably is different from club to club. You know, we all have the same return to play guidelines to go by, and our club certainly did that. But even just based on the demographic of our club, it was somewhat almost the other side of the pendulum, where you know, over the summer we set up like we normally have this is the Horizon 100 Club. We normally have, you know, a very full weekly schedule of group rides. We had a more limited schedule, and you know, practicing all the social distancing, no drafting, etc. We set it all up, and because we actually have a significant percentage of people that are in their 60s and even 70s in our club, a lot of people just made their own personal decision, which we didn't discourage them from making. Everyone, we wanted to be comfortable with what they were doing, but many people just still chose not to take part in that sort of group activity. So what we would normally have expected in a non-COVID year of, you know, group rides of up to 50 people or so, we were challenged to get you know, 10 people that would agree to sort of show up and take the supposed risk of cycling with their friends. So yeah, it's just interesting difference.
Yeah. Okay. No more comments on this. I guess I'll move to the next screen. So this was just an infographic that I found online that I thought it was interesting, and I wanted to share with you guys. I just kind of Googled the riding bikes during COVID-19 if you're wanting to find it to share out to your club members. It really just follows everything that's within our current guidelines. So insurance implications on COVID. So our policy now is, like Rob was saying, it is the same insurance underwriter as before, but we do have a new insurance broker. It is with Gallagher Insurance rather than Holman Insurance. And then because it's a new policy, the only change in it was that this policy is not going to be, there is a COVID clause in it, and it's not going to be responding to any COVID-19 claims. This is something I was advised that this is kind of the same across all sports. So all sports are going to be dealing with this. So we just need to make sure when clubs are doing any activities that you just want to make sure you kind of throw it past the SCA office so you can kind of get that sanctioned and approved activity stamp sort of thing, so that if something happens for insurance, we can all say it was an approved activity. And then for insurance, we also of course need to make sure that we're following all of our public health guidelines, and that we are following all of our return to sport guidelines, because we obviously don't want to void any of our insurance. Does anybody have any questions on insurance and COVID? No? Okay.
One quick question, Sarah.
Sure.
A lot of the people in our club have no idea about what their insurance entitles them to. Is there some info that we could distribute to them?
So because it's a new insurance thing, we're still waiting for it. I'm hoping it'll be here within a week or two, but Gallagher is building us a cycling insurance website that is going to have like a bunch of frequently asked questions and things like that. So I would encourage everybody, once I get that, I'm certainly going to send the new website out to all of the club presidents. So the club presidents, if they choose to, can send that out to all the members, as well as in the spring, we had hosted a insurance, kind of an open forum, kind of like this, where people ask questions, we were able to answer them. And that is up on our YouTube channel if people want to take a look through kind of the questions that were asked there. But certainly if anybody ever has like a question, they can contact me and I can hopefully answer it. I'm not a broker, but I've dealt with it lots.
Can I ask a quick question just on that subject?
Yeah.
Do you also, when people become members, and I apologize, I just forget. I'm so used to doing the other side of the registration, but is there like a link when they get their SCA membership that just would, I guess, explain the new insurance? Is that a plan as well?
There isn't a link on the getting the membership sort of thing, but there is if, let me share that for a minute and get into a different thing here. Sorry, I'm just looking something up here. Let me share my screen again.
No worries. The reason I asked is because we get memberships come through all summer. So
okay,
sometimes we'll have it posted and all that sort of stuff. And I know it's on the website. I was just curious.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, if people have questions, we do have an insurance tab on our website. So this, obviously the website, the cycling website isn't active yet, but if people, and there will be a link to our, hopefully the FAQ sort of thing once we get them. So this is just a quick way for people to kind of do our insurance at a quick browse sort of thing. You can send them over to our website for it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. I pushed the wrong button here. Okay, so just getting back into this. So does anybody else have any questions kind of about our insurance policies. Now, is that something that you guys think people really want? Like, we can certainly host another insurance kind of FAQ session maybe before the start of the season if you guys think that's something that people really want. I would certainly be open to it.
I find in BMX, like we obviously have a significant number of smaller injuries, a less significant number of more severe injuries. I have had to fill out many accident report forms, and I've had to talk to the I would say his name's the underwriter, whoever contacts me to follow up with the insurance notes.
Yeah.
And I do find that it's a topic I do have to like spend a lot of time informing each member when it does come to injury. Like I'll end up saying when they're injured, like, oh, don't forget you have insurance benefits. I'm like, oh, like really? So I think it would be worth it, especially for, I don't know, I can't guarantee people will go to it, but I do feel like the more education around the insurance benefits might be good.
And our new insurance broker is, he's a really personable guy. And he says he likes coming out to like AGMs and discussing things with people. So we could even see if we were going to set something up, if our insurance broker would come to that to kind of help lead it. So that's something, I'm just going to make a little note here that I will.
Yeah, if it's the same guy I spoke to in the summer, he was a really nice guy. I don't know.
No, this would be a different one now, but he's Brent's really good.
I was gonna say, Sarah, maybe because I think everyone, like I know when we all register on CCN, a lot of the clubs at the very least like send some kind of a confirmation email, and I wonder, does the SCA send that with the SCA membership too? And can you put the link to that section of the website in the confirmation email with membership?
Yeah, that's something that would be easy enough that I could, if people think that it's helpful, I can get CCN to add on to our kind of confirmation stuff. So
I think it would be, because personally, I don't even know a lot about what the personal insurance is that I get with my SCA membership. So, and I feel like I've been involved enough that maybe I should. So
I think yeah, putting it in people's faces like that. Like, again, you've got tons of resources and the information out there is not lacking for your guys' effort. So appreciate that. But yeah, throwing it in their face on their confirmation would be, I'd also agree.
Okay.
I just wanted to add to the other, went through the old policy with Holman, and I think, Sarah, there's going to be something similar as that developed for this one, was the risk management for cycling clubs. There's lots of really good information in there that can be shared with members, whether it's been made available on a club, if a club has a website, and then you can just steer people to that. But that was with the old program, it was really good.
Yeah, so that's something that they're all going to be making for us. So okay, no more questions or comments about insurance. I guess we can kind of move on to events. So this is kind of where we're at, I guess. So right now we're hosting some events, kind of virtual events, just in people's homes for the winter. In the spring, so we're hoping clubs are going to be able to provide activity for their members. And then like we saw last year, it was all kind of regional events because travel was discouraged. And then we're hoping that it's going to move on to interregional once travel restrictions are maybe lifted a little bit, and then we can do our pivot to normal. So this is just kind of our best case scenario, I guess. And so what we're trying to do with our 2021 events is that we want to set things that are allowable under our current restrictions. And then as restrictions kind of open up a little bit, we will do that quick change and be able to pivot to allow new events. So we're kind of throwing out there as to look at is things that are like an individual start of mountain bike gravel races, you know, and the ITTs of road and everything like that. So just those individual events where we can have the easy to follow distancing and social distancing and everything like that. So is there anything kind of in there that I might be missing a little bit?
What about individual indoor, like field house stuff?
Yeah, so what you are currently allowed to do indoors, it has to be for the youth athletes. It has to be for ages 18 and under, and you are only allowed 10 people at a time. And they need to be spaced 3 meters apart, and they have to be, every participant needs to be masked. You can allow 10 participants and then coaches as well, but your coaches must be in a medical mask. So we do have athletes at the field house in Saskatoon. Some of our high performance athletes are in the field house in Saskatoon right now, operating under the current restrictions.
No, I thought I'd heard it was only 8, but if it's 10, that's good.
Oh, is it only 8? Okay.
I thought I had 8 under 18, and then I was allowed to have coach or assistant individuals, so male, female chaperone, another.
Yeah, that would.
Yeah, I think
it's on
8.
our website, Jen. It must be 8 if that's what Russ is thinking of.
Yeah, the outdoor stuff is 8 right now.
10 outdoor.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, that's what it is. 10 outdoor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Skiing is only 8 right now. That's why the 8 makes sense. Yeah, I think they might have evolved that. I think December 17th, a new set was released. So
yeah.
Okay, no, I wasn't sure if the high performance. Sorry, Russ. Russ had texted me about the high performance stuff, and I didn't get back to him, so I wasn't actually sure if it was going. But that's good to know that you guys are going.
Yeah.
Individual road and gravel makes sense. That I participated in an unsanctioned gravel event this summer, and it was pretty good individual start. Individual start mountain bike, would it be like laps would be okay with short, like 4K laps and stuff, or?
Yeah, they would have to be short laps, and then I would kind of do it along the same lines of where you want to maybe start your. Would you want to start your faster riders first, I guess, and just try to limit the amount of passing as much as you can. But yeah, everyone would need to be spread out amongst the course.
Mm-hmm. Like we could do something at like Buffalo Pound with a much longer event that could reduce contact without having laps if you did it that way.
Yeah.
An interesting thing about that, like I watch a lot of motocross, like super sport motorbike racing, and if you look at the guidelines of the ISL TT race in Ireland, so it's like a racer goes, he has to wait, I believe it's like 2.5, 3 minutes, and then he gets tapped on the shoulder and he can go, and then like another 2.5 minutes or whatever, and then he can go. And that just shows, that gives like the boundaries that the rider is most likely not to catch the next rider and you'd be at a safe distance between, like if you let him go 2 minutes later, if that athlete is has the ability to catch the next athlete, you'd have to structure it a certain way. But that's what comes to mind when I heard about what you guys were just talking about there.
Yeah, when we ran the time trial series in Saskatoon last year, we extended the time between riders to 2 minutes between each rider, and I don't think we had a couple of passes, but not very many there. It was pretty rare to have a pass. The other thing I was going to say, Sarah, is I'd like to see added to this sort of right off the bat is on the local side, get the mini teams back. And I'm sure that BMX is going to agree with me on this one too, because like this works great for adult stuff, having these individual events, but it's really hard to come up with a viable way to run a kids program where you can't have sort of a small group together. So even if it was back to like what was described as phase 4.1 last year, that starts to allow some of this youth programming to go, in my opinion. So
yeah, and I mean that's honestly something that I can't even make any guarantee on, Craig, if we're going to be allowed back to that or not. It's the mini team is suspended right now, and the government so far is not moving on that one.
Yeah,
I honestly didn't even ask about BMX because it's January, and like if we don't start till June again, we don't start till June again. We'll have to just wait and see what happens. Because you're right, you can't really do individual stuff unless you're doing individual programs off the track.
And I will add to that, Jen, in regards to the morale of the parents of our members. Last year, we had an unbelievable response of like it was like all the parents were like super happy that the kids were engaged, and like we were following procedures, and we still had the coaching, and we still had all that other stuff. So you know, whether or not we have another year like that, I think like for our club, as much as I miss racing with Globe and 13th Avenue and like getting that the competitive spirit going within our clubs in our province, the training, the time on the bikes, the coaching, and everything else had been very positive, and the parents were just delighted. So I mean, as bad as it was last year, and as much as we missed racing with the other teams and the other clubs, it was a very positive year for us, and it allowed us, I believe, like a buffer point to kind of focus on some of the things that, you know, we needed to home in on. So you know, if it is another year and we start as June, as Jen said, I don't really see any negative things because of the positiveness that has carried over from last season. And I don't really see any first, like, you know, people hesitation to engage in membership or whatever because of that positive experience. So in saying that, yes, we miss Globe. Yes, we miss 13th Ave. Yes, we miss the SAS Cup. But in general, I think the morale of the sport and the enthusiasm behind the riders and behind the clubs themselves and what they're trying to achieve, I think that it's an all right moment. That's what I think. So anyways, I just wanted to share that.
So as a winter focused club, and making a comment, I guess, towards some of the other ones that we're referring to, a big uptake in bikes, and we're certainly seeing huge uptake in winter trail use right now, and I think that's around the province, and would still like to host some events. We did do a Global Fat Bike Day, and I think that format worked reasonably well, certainly well within all of the guidelines. But to do an event that's 40-50K long as an individual time trial and only be allowed to do, am I reading this right, 10 people?
Yeah.
Like I can't get my head around like 10 people an hour, 10 people period.
The government right now is saying 10 people. It has to be in groups of 10. So if you wanted to do that, you would almost need to have different start times and have a group of 10. And then if you were estimating it was going to take them an hour and a half, then you can have a separate second group of 10 sort of thing go out.
But no, there's no groups. It would be like a time trial. So if they started 2 minutes apart and they'd never see each other on the course for 50K, why would you even wait? Why would you call it groups? Why would there be a restriction?
That's what we had to do with our gravel race in the spring when Randy Lewis organized that individual time trial. It was like a 100K race.
Yeah.
We're starting the fastest people first. What's the problem, right? Well, no, we had to have wave starts. So like first wave goes at 9 o'clock, second wave goes at 10 o'clock, and you got to meter it out that way. So that would be that would be very similar to what we dealt with as one of our first big events in the new world.
Yeah. And that's just an example of honestly the government not really understanding the sport of cycling, but this is something that's set for all sports, and it's out of my hands to change it, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just trying to make sure I'm understanding.
Yeah.
You know, like that groups of 10, like, and
Yeah.
what's the, is that
It
an
used
hour,
to be
half an
higher,
hour?
yeah.
Before we
day?
move on, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to add. Sorry, Russ. I was just going to add, Jeff, and you know, if we could get back to where we had mini leagues were in play, then then you're looking at 30 people, and that changes that scenario quite a bit. But I guess
but even when the
mini leagues aren't on the table right now or aren't allowed.
Ironically enough, though, Rob, at one point last year, the mini leagues went all the way up to 50, yet to run the individual event, you were still limited to 30.
Yeah.
Which that baffled my mind completely. It didn't end up being an issue, but it completely baffled me.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of you read the guidelines, and in my opinion, I'm shaking my head half the time at the guidelines because they just don't apply to our sport, but also talking to them about how they don't apply to our sport doesn't net the changes that we want either. So then moving on to our SAS Cup calendar. So right now, we haven't set a calendar just because we weren't sure if we wanted to land on some arbitrary date that was may or may not pass sort of thing. So what we've kind of decided on is we're just going to, we'll work on quickly a calendar for if events are allowed sort of thing. And I would expect that the calendar will kind of go with what happened last year. So if it's if you were awarded provincials last year sort of thing with your club, then your club is going to have kind of the first right of refusal for having provincials again. And we'll just kind of work in as many events as we can possibly get with whatever season we are going to be allowed to have. But we can only have a SAS Cup event calendar if they start lifting travel restrictions. And I again don't have the glass ball, so I don't know if they're going to be lifting those travel restrictions in time. I'm a little more hopeful for an actual cross calendar this year than anything else, just because the vaccine, but that might be all we get. I don't know on that one. Any questions on that one? So I just had a question in the chat about, is GASP being planned on an optimistic basis? So right now GASP is not being ruled out 100%. We are not going to be releasing like opening up registrations or anything like that anytime soon. If it looks like by June we've kind of give it the cutoff that if these travel restrictions are released and we can have people traveling easier across the province, then we are probably going to be hosting a GASP, and we'll be able to set a calendar and kind of throw things together rather quickly on that. But we're, again, not sure if it will happen in time or not. Anything else on our one more chat? Okay, so I guess that's really all that I have for you guys. Is there any more questions on maybe something that I've missed or whatever throughout all of this?
I think it was very informative, and I'm, we're happy to receive all the content in which everybody had to express, and there was a lot of good conversation there. And so hats off to everybody's efforts once again. And it was great to tune in and catch up with everybody.
Yeah.
Hi, Sarah. Dwayne from Prince Albert. I do have a question about memberships.
Okay.
You obviously have seen a change in memberships last year, I presume, going down, even though there's a lot more cyclists out there.
Yeah.
Is there any, that's going to hurt some clubs in the means of funding. So are you going to be taking like a 3-year average as opposed to last year's average? And on top of that, is there any COVID money available to Sask Cycling through Sask Sport? I know Sask Sport is providing funds like to the wrestling clubs that are out there. Is that being looked at or entertained?
Yeah. So Sask Sport gave Sask Cycling some emergency COVID relief funds, and we were able to use it. We're actually using most of it on insurance costs because our insurance costs are going up. That we are, so we've kind of frozen the prices for people to join the memberships this year, and we will be dipping into those COVID funds to help kind of eliminate that barrier, so our insurance, so our rates for members aren't going up this year. And then, sorry, Dwayne, can you repeat the first part of the question?
The first one was just based on the membership being lower than general, right? A couple years ago, when everybody's involved with Sask Sport racing or Sask Cup racing and everything, our club grew. Last year, I know our club, I believe, did drop in numbers, and typically our funding or MAP grants are based on numbers. So
yeah.
Will it be like a 2-year average that you're looking at, a 3-year average, or what do you guys
so
think?
our what happened last year is that we didn't take into account the changes were happening due to COVID sort of thing, because what we tried to do was, yes, everyone's numbers were lower, but at the end that meant that there was more money for all of the clubs to get a bigger percentage of what we call our top-up feature sort of thing. So all of the clubs still got, I would, just looking back through the MAP amount sort of thing, it was similar funding to what they had received in previous years as well. So when we're looking at MAP, so once we're figuring out all the averages and everything like that, so unless something changes dramatically, that we're seeing that clubs aren't getting as much more money as they normally do, we probably won't change things on that. But like, as on a whole, Sask Cycling's membership has dropped, that we only received, I think, 52% of our members back for the year.
So Sarah, we're affected sport to sport as well, right? So is that not true? So for instance, if the other sport keeps their membership and cycling does not, well, it's pretty hard to pass anything down when we're being compared against another sport, and we don't have membership as a provincial sport organization.
Yeah.
So when we don't buy memberships, then we don't have money to pass anywhere.
Yeah. So in terms of MAP, like Sask Sport gives us a chunk of money, and I go through and I allocate all the funds, and then it's kind of a use it or lose it sort of scenario from Sask Sport. So then we just go through and we give a top-up feature to all the clubs to make sure that 100% of our MAP is being spent throughout the year. Any more questions? So Janice had a comment in the chat that insurance rate went up before, not really COVID related. So this year the insurance broker is telling us that the rates are pretty much 100% related to COVID, because the insurance market as a whole went through a more combustible market, I guess. So our insurance rates did end up going 12.5% higher than it was last year.
That's super frustrating. They should be giving us a rebate because we didn't even hold any events that would have had an insurance related.
Yeah.
Plus there's waivers against the COVID anyway. So
yeah. The problem with the insurance is kind of, I mean, we give our base of, okay, we had X amount of members this year. We expect we're going to get, you know, maybe a 2% increase every year, sort of thing, is kind of how we give to the broker every year when they are quoting us our insurance rates for the next year. And so what apparently did not help us as a whole, because our insurance program, I mean, goes across Canada. So what did not help as a whole is that they were quoting all of our rates on this bigger amount of people, but COVID hit, so they really only had 50% of the people join, and they only got, so the insurance companies really only got 50% of what they were expecting to get for the year. So now they're going around and they're trying to recoup their lost rates from last year out of us this year, is what's happening really. Because they only got paid 50% of what they were expecting. So it
With
sucks.
due respect, Cycling Canada has to push back on it. That is the business risk of the insurance company. And sorry, too bad, so sad you lost out last year. That doesn't change for this year.
Yeah.
So that's on Cycling Canada. That needs a bit of pushback.
Yeah, we tried even, I mean, we tried to get a couple of insurance companies to even quote against each other to see if we could get different, a better price from one company over to another, sort of thing. And we're being told it's just the nature of the market this year that we are getting screwed.
It is really tough to like have members register when you know there's little promise of anything happening.
Yeah.
One other quick non-COVID question, if I could. This is Jeff from the Freewheelers. We're just getting set up for 2021 and switching over to the new payment processor. And I wonder if anybody else has had any issues, comments, concerns, everything's fine with them, anything we should know?
I went through it last fall, Jeff, at a club level, and it's a lot of work to get switched over to the Chase We Pay, but
we just kept getting documents denied, but eventually we got it.
Yeah.
I had to have a few support calls, but
yeah, then they'll say, hey, we need these documents from you, and then they'll review it, and then they'll say, well, we need these other 3 documents from you. Eventually you get there. The nice thing though with it is they do pay out a lot faster than what CCN was paying.
it seems like it's almost on a daily basis as opposed to a monthly.
you can set it to your preference. So it has quite a bit of, yeah,
okay.
You can do like daily, weekly, monthly. You can do like a certain date of the month. Like they do give you a lot of options in the settings. That was one bonus for us.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? It doesn't, and you're just right, it doesn't even necessarily have to be COVID related, just anything happening this year that you guys want to talk about?
Sorry, I might have missed this. And we did talk about MAP grant. Is it the same process this year to apply for a MAP grant? Same sort of regulations?
So far,
that sort of stuff?
Yep. So far it will be the same. And then if we're looking at the numbers and there's something seems off, that's when we'll kind of look to see where we need to adjust. But it worked out last year. We thought that everyone was getting approximately where they were at the previous years.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a real nice perk to still get that money. So we appreciate that for sure. Have the MAP grant secondary payments already gone out as well?
Yeah, so what we did for MAP grant this year is we started doing direct deposits.
Yeah.
So everyone should, there should have been emails sent out, but everyone should check their bank accounts and just make sure because they went out in November sometime, the 2nd, and even everyone that I talked to said that they got it. So if you didn't get it, I guess let me know and I'll look into it on my end.
All good. We have a board meeting tomorrow night, so I mostly just wanted to ask so I could make sure Kendall looked tomorrow.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Everything, and if your club hasn't set up with us a direct deposit, please get your banking information over to us, because this direct deposit is honestly so much easier than writing checks. I'm not getting hand cramps.
It's amazing it's taken 5 years for that to happen.
We appreciate it for sure, because obviously people change in our club where those checks go to. So
yeah,
that works very well for us. Thank you for doing that.
Anything else, or are everyone's talked out? Oops.
So the United States is building a rail trail right across the country. It's going to be 6,000 clicks. In a couple of years, we're going to plan like a mega gasp and do the whole trail.
Sounds good to me.
I'll just pipe in and I'll just say once again, I think like all of us collaborated efforts in what has been discussed has been very informational, and it's been really good. So it was great that we could all get together and talk about this openly and have a good conversation and get the data and all that other stuff. So it's been really good.
Yeah. So we can do another one of these. We did one in the spring once the reopen plan was kind of announced. So I was planning on doing, once we have a better idea of what our spring reopen plan is going to be, we can have another one of these Zoom meetings, and we can talk about hopefully whatever is going to be happening with the reopen plan.
I have an unrelated question. Last year we went through a process of nominations for various awards and stuff, and that never really, we were kind of hoping we'd wait to be able to do it in person. That never really happened. Is there a plan to move forward and release those awards from last year and do something new this year? Or are you going to try and carry that over? What's the plan there?
Yeah, so we were hoping to be able to do this meeting in person where we could do the award presentations in person. Now, unfortunately, that didn't happen. So I did mail off the awards to everybody Wednesday, I guess it was. So once I'm sure that everyone kind of has their awards, we will be releasing something on, social media sort of thing, just congratulating all the award winners.
Awesome.
Okay, so if there's no more comments, I guess we can, it's 8:30 and that's how long I said we were gonna go, so we can wrap it up, I guess. How about that for punctuality?
Thanks, guys.
Okay, so have a good night, everyone.
Thanks for attending, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks.
You guys.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
See ya.